If you're a longtime listener of this program, you know that I am always concerned about the financial crisis. It stems back to 2008, which I thought at the time, back in 2006 and 2007, I was telling you this, a big one, could cause a depression. What I didn't foresee is that the federal government would, what was it George Bush said, violate the free market system to save the free market system. Instead, we did not save the free market system. What we did was make the problem bigger. At the time in 2008, our banks were too big. They're too big to fail. We got to break these big banks up. Well, nobody did that in 2008. In fact, the opposite happened. They got bigger. And now what's happening? They're bailing things out and making the bigger banks even bigger. Credit Suisse just rolled into another bank. This is what's going to happen. They're just going to start. We're going to end up with 4 banks, and then we'll end up with the Fed. Okay, and by violating the free market, everything went off the rails. Last week, banks borrowed a combined $164.8 billion from 2 Federal Reserve backstop facilities, and so you know. Data published by the Fed showed $152.85 billion in borrowing from the discount window. Then they did a record high from $4.85 billion the previous week. So they went from $5 billion to $152 billion in a week. The prior all-time high was in 2008. And that's when the banks got together and they borrowed $111 billion. That was at the height of the financial crisis. Remember, we're not in a financial crisis. We had a little bump in the road. Everything is fine. They borrowed $152 billion. So, what, $41 billion more than they did in 2008.
To be fair, with inflation, that $111 billion is $94 trillion today.
The data also showed $11.9 billion in borrowing from the new emergency backstop known as the Bank Term Funding Program, which was launched last week. Other credit extensions totaled $142.8 billion. So you got all that. You got all that happening in the background of everybody telling you that it is fine. I want you to know, if you're a longtime listener, you know that I freak out about these things. I said last week, I don't think this is it, but it's going to look a lot like this when it does come. And I want to spend just a couple of minutes here talking to you about what is coming eventually. I could be wrong. This could be it. I don't think it is, but I am growing more cautious by seeing what's happening behind the scenes. Lots of planes flew in to see Warren Buffett over the weekend. After Warren Buffett had a phone call with Joe Biden about the banking system, all these people, and we don't know who they are, and we think they went and met with Warren Buffett. We don't know. But what I do know is in 2008, we were trying to stop a depression. Remember, they said the entire banking system was about to collapse and it would have put us in a depression. There's $23 trillion in the U.S. banking system today, and everything is interconnected. The contagion, meaning one bank falls, then it's dominoes. It goes across the water, and it will collapse everything unless you're disconnected. Hello, Russia. Unless you're disconnected from that banking system. The banks were saved in 2008, but just that crisis, with them being saved, we had unemployment at nearly 11%. We are now looking at a bigger problem if it fails. We're looking first at our big local and regional banks. The government will have to bail them out. By the way, do not take your money out of those banks. You will be FDIC insured. If you're a business, check with a bank. But don't take your money out because that will collapse the system. They provide 60% of all of our commercial loans. If the small banks collapse, 60% of all of our loans and our businesses collapse. Be very, very bad. We are not looking at a depression situation. We are looking at a complete collapse of the West if this happens. You'll have social unrest, but I think the government is souping this up already. It will happen not only here, but all over the Western world. That will cause a further breakdown of supply chains. If you lose 60% of your business funding for your businesses in your country, what does that mean? It means you're going to have lots of people without jobs. They're not making things, which then what happens? If you have the supply chain, you first need to worry about medicine and food because that will be of a real concern. But if businesses lose their capital, they lose their ability to produce products and services. They lose their ability to employ. People lose their jobs. That would make for worse inflation, maybe hyperinflation, because the federal government will bail everybody out, and all of that money will be circulating, and fewer goods, if the global economy would collapse, fewer goods will be coming in, so the price of those goods could go to hyperinflation. The issue is that the middle class, the working class, the poor class, they're the ones who are going to bear the brunt of most of this. Last time around, from 2007 to 2011, 5.7 million people had their houses foreclosed or short sale. We are looking at a possible, and I really truly believe this will happen before 2025. So you need to mentally prepare. This is a completely different world if this happens. And if it happens, it will happen quickly. We are headed towards a currency reset. If it is a cryptocurrency, if it is a central bank digital coin, CBDC, we're going to get bargaining. And here's what's going to happen. The government will step in and say, this is too big for anybody else to handle. We'll handle it with the Fed. We're resetting the currency. It's going to be a digital dollar. It'll be in the Fed. Every American has an account now with the Fed. We will give you more than what your dollar is worth right now for the first, 8 weeks. Your dollar will be worth $1.25. So get your digital currency now. And in 6 weeks, it's going to be worth $1. And 6 weeks after that, it'll be worth 75 cents. Eventually, it will be worth nothing. And it will force everybody into a digital currency, which will ultimately control absolutely everything you do and a lower standard of life. But a lot of people will be happy because there's some normalcy. It also would mean most likely a war. All of these things are beyond possible right now. The financial and the reset to a digital currency is not just possible, it is probable. The war, I don't know. What would you say, Stu? Probable or just still possible?
Probable?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Probable. So you have to get yourself in a different mindset, please. I told my wife, and I'll tell you, because I want to tell you what I would tell my own family. We got to go shopping tonight. We have our emergency food, but if this happens, you'll have a breakdown worse than COVID. You won't be getting the money. The money will start to inflate quickly. Prices will spiral out of control. And when you have, especially in some areas, when you have a breakdown of trucking or supply chains, you're going to have a hard time getting things. So I would just recommend do not hoard, but grab some extra things and have them ready. This may not be the time, but I like to sleep at night. Take care of your family. Do the right things. Do not panic. Panic makes this whole thing happen. So do not panic.